And thank you all so much for being here today. Everyone's getting settled in. Perfect. So, before we get started here today, I just want to really encourage you to just be really present in this moment. There's no need to take notes. There's no pop quiz at the end here. We're just here in this moment together. I really just want you to feel the frequency of the words and to feel the words. If you want to audio record anything or anything like that, sometimes these words can resonate even a little bit differently the second time around. And so, if you're here today, chances are that either you or someone that you love you're looking for answers in terms of your health. You maybe have been given a diagnosis or a prognosis that scares you. And if that's the case, I can completely understand because this is an experience that I myself have lived. For me, the journey into learning how to heal from the incurable started as a perfect storm of 4 major life events. First, I had a severe neurological reaction to a vaccine. Second, was witnessing my father's very painful transition when he died. Third, was coming off of antidepressants after being on them for 16 years and experiencing extreme withdrawal symptoms. And fourth, was losing my breadwinning job. Any one of those is a challenge. You put all 4 of them together, it's a recipe for disaster. Within 8 months, my health completely crashed, and I was left with a slew of different symptoms ranging from vertigo, tinnitus, blurred vision, slurred speech, rashes when I would go out into the sun, hypermobility, GI problems, bladder inflammation, among a few. My life became unrecognizable in a very short amount of time, and at age 30, I was given a fair prognosis for the rest of my life. So you can imagine, it's very difficult to hear that. The doctor said that the pain in my legs, I would get used to, because on top of everything, I had a spinal injury to boot, where now I couldn't feel my legs from below the knees. Doctor said that the leg pain would never really go away. I would just get used to it if I tried a little bit of physical therapy. And as for the other symptoms, he said they all fell under the umbrella of autoimmune disease. But there wasn't really anything they could do except for some pills for symptom management, and that my symptoms would likely get worse as I got older. So you can imagine, I was not thrilled to hear this. This was challenging to hear. I had just turned 30, what my father called your power years. They were years when you really gain momentum in your life. And here I was, feeling completely underwater, with legs that didn't really work the way that I wanted them to, and being told that things weren't going to get much better. However, there was kind of a brilliance as to what was happening, because my body was actually representing my mind perfectly. I felt completely unsupported by life. Spine went out. I was having difficulty digesting all these traumatic things that I had witnessed when my father died, and so I couldn't digest physical food. And on top of it, at the time I was in a relationship with a narcissistic partner, and I felt a lot of rage towards him and his treatment towards me. And as a result, my bladder was literally and figuratively pissed off. As above, so below. So, what actually got me on this path of being able to heal? Got me on the path of starting to really break that cycle between the mind and the body, the chaos that was happening within. And if I were to break down my healing process, I would put it into 2 steps. And the first step was surrender, and the second step was taking inspired action. Let's talk about surrender first. Surrender is going to be the release of expectation that your life has to look anything else other than the way that it does right now. And that's not something that's necessarily super easy for the mind to get on board with, because we have our certain expectations about life, we have our certain identities, right? What happens when you become the runner that can no longer use their legs? Or if you're the parent that is responsible for taking care of everybody, or the breadwinner that puts food on the plate, and now suddenly you can't even get up and go to work because you're too sick. We often feel blindsided when we get hit by something like this. We say, oh my God, it just came out of nowhere. One day I was fine, and then the next day I was down. But when we get perceived this perceived blindsidedness, this is an invitation to stop and start to look within. Because I find that, in my experience, illness doesn't just happen out of nowhere. There can be a divinity and a perfection to it, something that we're being invited to look at on a deeper level. Perhaps it's an old trauma. Or it could be an old story that you tell about yourself and the way that you think that the world should be. Perhaps it's a relationship with food and with diet, how you eat, when you eat. Or it could be an invitation to get out of a physically toxic environment or an emotionally dangerous one. I find that there's always feedback that is being given in that moment. I think really healing from illness like this, it really invites the question of us being able to ask, what part of me or what aspect of me is crying out for love, and what can I do to honor that more? What can I do to show up for that part of me? But when you first get sick, that might not necessarily be on the forefront of your mind, because right now you got symptoms, and these symptoms are doing the most. They don't feel good. They're distracting, probably really uncomfortable, and they might even be life-threatening. But it's important to start to understand this relationship between the mind and the body. Otherwise, sometimes we unconsciously continue to drive these patterns of illness within the body. Because what happens, if we only treat something on a physical level, what you may find happens, and this is a very common experience I feel in the chronic illness community, is that you get one symptom finally managed, and then pop, another one springs up like a weed, and now you're in a game of symptom whack-a-mole, just everywhere, just trying to put out these fires. But if that's happening, it means that there's a deeper root cause that hasn't been addressed yet, and until it is, you might still see this kind of chaos emerging within the body. Now, healing gets to be super inconvenient sometimes because it means that we got to change. And what is it that we human beings fear on a psychological level slightly more than, or maybe slightly less than public speaking? I would say, it's change. It's like, oh no, it's me. I gotta be the one. Shoot. Anything but that. But this is the way. And there's a cool reality and a very powerful reality here, that the version of you that is currently experiencing autoimmune disease or chronic pain or something like that is making different moves in the world than the version of you that's going to be healed. This is where it actually gets to get kind of exciting, because the healing isn't just about the pill. It's not about the supplement, the treatment, the procedure, all the things. It's about the energy shift that happens from within. You start to change emotionally. Your physical world is going to start to look a little different too. When you start to really embody the change, literally all the little arm hairs just went up right now. That's when life gets really juicy. Deep root level healing involves getting really vulnerable and starting to really look at these knee-jerk reactions that we have to stress and pain and fear, not by avoiding these things, but by really embracing them, being able to hold it with love in the moment, let the emotion pass through its entire cycle, and from there, taking a new action step. So let's say, for example, we have a friend that has a thyroid condition, thyroid disease. I often find that people that have thyroid conditions, they really struggle to express, just to speak their truth. And it reflects, in their throat chakra, there's a big energetic connection there. So if someone's really struggling to speak their truth, they might really struggle with setting boundaries, things like that. And so what a person in this situation could do is start to really look at, why is it that I'm not able to fully express yet? Maybe there's a history of feeling unworthy, having been really put down or criticized really harshly in the past, rejected for having an opinion or a thought about anything. I think we can all relate to being in family dynamics where, or friendship dynamics where our voice isn't always the one that's heard. So what this person could do is, in that moment, really start to look at these emotions, start to let them come up, surrender to them, not succumb to them. It's different. It just means allowing it to exist for a moment, instead of trying to banish it, putting away, saying that it's shameful or wrong. Holding it for a moment. It starts to feel uncomfortable. You'll feel the discomfort of the emotion moving through your body. But afterwards, the relief, powerful. This is the process of alchemy. And alchemy is really, really uncomfortable. And that's why a lot of us spend our lives not doing it. And why would we, when we can distract ourselves with the myriad of other things that are available to us, including but not limited to alcohol, drugs, sex, overworking, Instagram, doom scrolling for 2 hours looking at cat videos. Oh God, I'm very guilty of that one. Yeah, been there. But this is the way. So then how do we surrender? This is a process that we can get kind of stuck on for years, because it involves us really letting go of kind of our hopes and expectations of what we thought life should actually look like, right? And we might feel angry in this moment where we're like, why do I have to surrender? Why me? Why did this happen to me, right? It's especially annoying if you have already been doing self-development work, you're here to learn. I'm sure that you've been looking within. And so if you're already doing that work, and then something happens, you're like, seriously? How did this happen? It's especially frustrating for me. I was already a subconscious reprogramming practitioner actively working with clients when I got sick. I was like, excuse me? But it just meant that there was more to explore. So, but at the moment, we don't often think that, here I have this symptom. Allow me to surrender to this process. We feel symptoms. What do we normally do? We resist right away. Something feels uncomfortable, and so now we're gonna fight it. Do you ever notice how we get kind of violent when it comes to working through illness? It's never just that we're gonna heal from cancer. We're gonna beat cancer. We're gonna fight this thing. We're gonna win. We're gonna dominate it. We get super badass about it, It's a whole vibe. In the chronic pain community, say we're gonna get ahead of the pain. We're gonna outsmart it before it gets us, kind of a thing. I hear that, get ahead of the pain. But I don't think that we need to get ahead of the pain. I think that rather we need to integrate the message from the pain. And once we do that, that is going to cut off the entire cycle before it even begins. I would ask for just a moment, if in a moment you could put down your sword and stop fighting. What if just for now, not forever, but just in this now moment, you could accept that things don't feel good? If you can start to do that and really, really embrace that, you will start to open up the gate within your heart, and the answers that you are seeking are going to start to try to come in. When I was in physical therapy and for 6 months and was just absolutely kicking the snot out of myself because I was so angry at my body for not doing what I wanted it to do. How dare it not work anymore? I have things to do. I don't have time for this. Well, I was going to have to make time for it now, right? So I had this moment, and it hit me like a lightning bolt one day. I was sitting in bed just berating myself, about my situation. And I said, oh my God, what if just in this moment, it was actually okay that my legs were super goofy? What if it was okay that just for right now, I couldn't walk the way I wanted to anymore? And I went, maybe it actually could be okay. I went, what an idea. And then all at once, that broke down so many mental strongholds all at the same time, especially of who I had in my mind of this identity of self. Because so much of my worth at that point was rooted in my ability to produce and achieve. And if I couldn't walk and if I couldn't work, who was I? I had no idea. But I started to find out. Because all the emotions came rushing up all at once. And I started to be able to work through those. And for the first time, I was able to look at them, not as an enemy, but as something to be loved, as something to be held. I would look at the emotion. I would witness it. I wouldn't shove it away. I would simply say, what do you need? That is a phrase that I often use with clients. I ask yourself, what is it that you need right now? And listen to the message. And as I started to listen, and I started to pay attention, and as those emotions worked through me, sometimes the emotional releases were so powerful, this is where really cool things started to happen. One time, or actually many times, after an emotional release, I would feel something in my spine start to move, shift, crack, suddenly get a huge rush of sensation and mobility in my leg that I didn't have before. The physical therapist didn't really know what to do with that. It's pretty cool. Other times, the emotional releases led to me being almost like a magnet to finding the perfect people at the perfect time. I'm sure you've experienced that. It's synchronicity. When you're really tapped in, the right people at the right times, they just come, one after another after another. That's the power of synchronicity. And so, compounded moments of surrender is how I actually started to build momentum in getting my health back. And it was started to be having me allow the solutions to come in that were trying to seek me. And in this world, we also get to be able to receive without having attachment afterwards. Because if you're in consciousness work already, you might have a really cool emotional release and then be like, hey, where's my manifestation? Come on, chop chop. But that's a trick of the mind too. So we really get to really surrender all of this to divine timing into something potentially even greater. And this is the spirit component. Knowing that your intuition is that direct line to whatever you feel is all that is. Whether you call that universe, God, source energy, whatever it may be. When you call upon that, especially if you use your words out loud, very powerful. Speaking these words out, your thoughts are very powerful, but I can guarantee you that your words, even more so. It's like speaking spells and the direct line to the universe of saying that this is what I'm available for and this is what I am not. It's a beautiful thing. So I found that speaking out loud and asking for help out loud to God, source, universe, that was what also started to bring in solutions really quickly too. So step 1, surrender. Now let's talk about step 2, inspired action. This means living and breathing the change that we just created through doing this emotional work. When you're not in alignment and in the truth of who you are, your energy field will have these holes in them, literal leaks that leak out energy so that you are literally and figuratively feeling drained. And the way that you help to plug those leaks is that you set the frequency right, and you do that by setting new boundaries and new standards in your life. You also get to trust your intuition, because if you're starting to do the emotional work, chances are you're starting to feel different now. You're starting to think in a slightly different way. This is where you'll start to get those intuitive nudges or little breadcrumbs. And when you start to follow them, you'll find that once you take one step, follow your intuition, see where it leads, the next step will appear. These stepping stones appear one after another, but they don't show up until you start walking the path. Trusting your intuition is going to lead to these solutions. And when you start to embody the new energy with action, well, it's also something that you have to do, because otherwise you will start to slide back to your default settings. We don't get away with just making the energetic shift, feeling good, and then we're like, I don't really want to do anything different now. Doesn't work. You will start to go back to your default settings, and unfortunately, the default settings are probably what are keeping you locked in a pattern of illness. So it's what we want to step away from. So let's say in our friend that we talked about earlier with thyroid condition, right? Something that they might want to do is they will start to, as a way of embodying the energy, setting new boundaries in their life. And when they do that, if they've started to already do the work, they're not going to trigger that same fight or flight response that got triggered out before, right? So when they inevitably set a boundary, say what they are and they aren't available for, the cortisol is no longer pumping. The adrenal glands get a break. And what's cool is that the adrenal glands are very connected with, you guessed it, the health of the thyroid. It's how we stop the cycle before it even begins. And then the body does what the body does, which is it starts to come back into homeostasis, which is what it has been trying to do for you the entire time. Your body isn't your enemy. Your body is your friend, and you have trillions of cells every day that are doing the most, trying to bring you back into a state of alignment. It just depends on how much we fight against that with our emotional resistance. When you take action, the universe is going to listen and it's going to match you. The summer that I finally left my emotionally abusive narcissistic partner, something really cool happened. One thing, the chronic fatigue vanished almost immediately. And the second thing was that my blood work, which had been abnormal for years with autoimmune markers, came back into almost completely normal range within 2 months. Talk about changing your environment. So, the surrender and inspired action is how you do this process. And I want to show you actually how easy it is. If you want to participate right now, to see what that process is.
Yes.
I love it. I want you to close your eyes. It's going to be a full interactive experience, y'all. All right. And I want you to imagine that you're in a little scanning machine right now. An old school scanner, where that little blue line moves from head to toe or from the top to the bottom of the piece of paper. And as it starts to scan you, I want you to just notice any areas in your physical body that feel uncomfortable. This may be very easy to feel if you have a diagnosis or if you have chronic pain. Or even if you don't, it might be something more subtle. Maybe a tightness in the back, tension in the jaw, things like that. And if you're moving through your body and if everything's feeling pretty good, I would invite you then to think of either a person or a situation that causes you to feel stress. I feel like most of our minds will jump somewhere immediately. And I invite you, once you're connected to that, you can keep your eyes closed. Once you're connected to that, either physical discomfort or stressful thing, I would invite you to raise your hand when you feel that. Okay, beautiful. Put your hands down. And as you connect to that physical discomfort or that emotional stress, I want you to focus on what emotion it brings up for you. What emotion do you notice? You may feel a physical pain, but you might feel anxiety about it. You might think about your really stressful coworker. You might feel really mad about it. Notice what emotion you feel surrounding that situation or physical discomfort. And when you're connected to that, once again, let's have you raise your hand to let me know you're there. Beautiful. And you can put your hands down. Okay. And now, I would invite you to see, where does that emotion now live in your physical body? You always bring it back to the body. Because if you have, let's say you have a chronic pain in your shoulder, you feel anxiety about it, the anxiety might not live in the shoulder. You might feel it in your heart. Or as a tightening sensation around the throat, tension in the head. And let me know when you're connected to that physical feeling in the body now. And once again, raising your hand. Beautiful. All right, you can put your hands down. And now, this is where the magic happens. And it's amazing because it's so easy. You don't have to do anything with it. All you have to do is look. So for a minute here, we're just going to witness the discomfort that we feel in our physical body as a result of the emotion. We're not going to try to make it go away. We're not going to try to blast it with love, transmute it, do any of these things. We are just going to look. And watch it, because what you focus on will start to change. We're just going to allow it to be there. We're going to allow it to exist. And I want you guys just to take nice deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth as you do this. Watching how that sensation feels in your body. And noticing that even as you hold space for the discomfort, it might start to feel a little different. This thing that we've been avoiding maybe doesn't feel quite as threatening as it did before. Or maybe it's really starting to speak to you. And if in these moments, if there's any moment of emotional release or any big feeling that comes up, I invite you to just let it pass. There's no judgment in this room. You can feel those feelings, feel those tears if they come up. Really holding space for this emotion and saying, maybe for the first time, it's okay that you're here. You don't need to go anywhere. I've got you. We're just going to sit with this for another 30 seconds because I can feel many of you moving through some pretty big energy right now. And your continued allowance of this experience, of this feeling, is the very thing that processes it. It's what moves it through. You're actively moving through alchemy as we speak. And you are doing what most won't. And that is a beautiful thing. I'm just going to take a few more deep breaths. Beautiful. I want you to take this moment just internally to thank yourself for being allowed to sit with this feeling, to sit with this discomfort. And whenever you feel called, slowly start to come back here and start to open your eyes. Welcome back. You may notice that feeling that you've been working through start to feel a bit different. might not feel exactly the same as it did before. Perhaps it feels softer, or maybe just not as scary to look at. And that's a beautiful thing. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of the nature of the energetic type of work that I do with my clients. As somebody who has intimately known the process of chronic illness inside and out, I have helped many and guide many through their doorway of transformation in terms of their health. You can truly quantum leap into the life that you desire, and it doesn't have to be scary, and it doesn't have to take you 20 years talking about it either. All it takes is a willingness to let go of your old stories and a willingness to listen. Your body is a miracle, a true miracle. As I mentioned before, trillions of cells constantly working for you, supporting you in this beautiful avatar that you inhabit as you move through this spiritual journey of life. And if it's speaking to you in the language of illness, all that it means is that it's time to listen. Now, I have seen medical turnarounds that have absolutely mystified doctors, from self-correcting spines to tumors that spontaneously dissolve to blood work that corrects itself within like 2 days. Science doesn't really have an explanation for it. They either call it a spontaneous remission, medical miracle. I simply call it the incredible power of love and the just unrelenting determination of the human spirit. You are truly put on this earth to thrive, not just survive. And with a little bit of willingness to let go, you can create the type of health that you want in your body for the rest of your life. You know, I want to thank all of you for being here with me today in this moment. Because if there's anything that I have learned from the chronic illness experience, it is that time is your most precious commodity. And I cannot tell you how much it means that you have decided to spend your time here today with me. If this speech today has impacted you in any way, I would invite you. And if you're more curious about the nature of the work that it is that I do, I'm going to be in Blue 72 for this whole weekend. We'll be doing medical intuitive readings. We're going to be doing psychic readings, and even moving some energy when it comes up as well, in a very powerful way. And actually today, if you want to sign up here with my best friend Sarah, you can wave hi, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. You also can discount on your services today. I want to thank you all so much for being in this experience here with me today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And sending just so much to all of you. So much love to all of you. All right. Thank you guys.